Our keynote speaker tonight is Mr. Brian Cochran. Just a little bit about Brian. He has a rather extensive resume. I'd like to read the first sentence to you. Brian has been called Mr. MacGyver, Indiana Jones, and even crazy by family and friends for some of his choices in occupations and hobbies. He is a U.S. Navy veteran. He practiced electronic warfare. He's a professional skydiver and a videographer. He's a graduate of UC Berkeley with the highest honors in legal studies, the University of Lund, Sweden, completing the Swedish Law and Politics program with honors. He is a high school English teacher. He's a real estate investor and agent and currently employed as a virtual environment administrator for a software developer company in Medford. Brian has traveled throughout the United States, the Far East, and several countries in Western and Eastern Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Cochran.
Directors, principals, parents, teachers, Shari, thank you for the invitation, and Eagle Ridge High School graduating class of 2017. Just pretend that you're out there and I'm facing you, okay? So, I'm actually going to change up my introduction. I'd had something else planned out, but from everything that I've been hearing today and have been reading, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I see that the class motto is, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Well, about a week ago, I was thinking about what my overall theme for my speech was going to be, and I came up with, which only made sense to me because this is what I believe, is that you can do anything you want to do. Anything. I was also thinking about the underlying theme that I wanted to convey with some of the things that I've done in life, some of the highlights, and there were a lot of options that I had, a lot of choices I could have made, and I decided to choose one for the sake of time because I know these guys want to walk the stage. So I chose risk-taking. Now I'm not talking about the type of risk-taking necessarily that involves extreme sports or the like. I'm talking about the type of risk-taking that we all go through every day. The type of risk-taking that you're going to be taking here soon, or if you haven't already, deciding whether you're going to go to college, you're going to find a job, travel, not sure what you're going to do. There's always risks that we take. Now with risk-taking, from my perspective, there are two elements to it. There's fear and there's courage. Whenever you take a risk, no matter what type, you're always going to have some level of anxiety, some level of fear. It could be low-level anxiety. It could be that you're just absolutely scared to do it. And that's natural. If you don't have some level of fear, then, well, maybe you're not normal. But the other element to that is courage. Now, from my perspective, courage is really just kind of what I've been hearing, and I read this on a young lady's hat earlier, is that courage is just deciding to do it and doing it. That's it. When you decide to do something and you do it, you're going to work through that fear, taking that risk, and with that you can do anything you want. So, also keep in mind that when I was in high school, I was an average to above average student in grades. I also didn't want to go to college after high school. I didn't even know if I would ever go to college. It just wasn't my thing at the time. So I spent 6 years in the Navy. Most of what I did revolved around, it was during the Cold War, so it revolved around Soviet intelligence and training fleet-wide personnel and pilots in electronic warfare war games. At 19, I was the youngest electronic warfare supervisor to serve on board the USS Long Beach. At 20, I was part of a critical mission on that ship. They went through the Sea of Okhotsk, up past Russia, or the Soviet Union at the time, to the Aleutian Islands, and we did a critical mission with a brand new missile system at the time called the Tomahawk missile. So we did that for 6 years. After that, I was a professional skydiver. I had about 2,000 jumps. I've instructed over 3,600 students. I designed and built my own helmet can system, and this was long before the GoPro. It weighed about 7 pounds. I had about 250 video jumps. I have about 750 tandems where I've taken people like you and I've attached them to the front of me, and we've jumped out of an airplane at 13,000 feet. And even in the sport, I was considered extreme. I was that guy that would do the things that my other extreme friends wouldn't do. Whether it was jumping off of bridges, buildings, helicopters, ultralights, balloons, hooking my parachute up to a 300 feet of rope and having a friend tow me down a public road. Yeah, it was a little crazy. I've had 8 malfunctions in my main parachute. The first 3 were high speed, which meant I was still doing 120 miles an hour, and my parachute wasn't coming out before I went to my reserve. And I was even in a plane crash in 2001, in 01, Cessna 206. So after that, during that time, interestingly enough, after having spent 6 years in the Navy and having traveled all over and had the life experience that I did, I decided that I was ready for college. It was that little bit of life experience that actually moved me on to wanting to go to school. So I graduated from UC Berkeley with highest honors. My thesis received the first A+ in 2.5 years in the legal studies department. At the time, I also, as Director Peterson said, went and did a study abroad program at the University of Lund in Sweden and graduated their program with honors. And I pretty much had a choice of going anywhere I wanted to in law school in the country. And keep in mind, I didn't want to go to college right after high school. I wasn't ready for it. I had letters of recommendation from John T. Noonan. He was a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals federal judge, Bob Baring. He was a law librarian at Bolt Hall, Berkeley's law school. And in all honesty, I didn't want to do that either. I thought I did, but I had a change of heart. So I took a break, bought a van, fixed it up, moved from Sacramento to Santa Cruz, and worked at a gas station for the next 3 years. And I can only imagine what my parents thought about that. I'm sure that's the career path you want for your kids, right? So, actually I went on a spiritual journey to take a second look. And I lived at a Tibetan Buddhist temple for about 6 months, studied Zen, Taoism, Paramhansa, all sorts of crazy stuff. And then came to a faith and belief in Jesus Christ. Amen. So, then I became a high school English teacher. Actually, no, I kind of skipped that one. I took over a strawberry inspecting business of all things. Yeah, now it was a small operation, it was just me, but it was very powerful. All of my clients, I had clients all over the country. Dallas, Philadelphia, Denver, Connecticut, all over California. And I was their eyes for the purchasing and the distribution of their strawberries. Now, if you took all of my clients and put them together, they were responsible for 75% of the distribution of strawberry in the United States. One of those clients, Pragachi Brothers out of Philadelphia, was responsible for exporting 50% of the strawberries for the United States. But I realized that wasn't for me either. That's when I became a high school English teacher. So after my first semester, they asked me to develop a curriculum for the 4th level of ESL, English as a Second Language, and I said, I'll do that. And so I came up with the curriculum, taught the class, and did that for about 1.5 years, and I affectionately called it Life Lessons in the Context of English. But the administration had a different idea. They liked their acronyms. So they came up with SEDI, Specially Designed Academic Instruction in English. And I liked mine better. So, long story short, Financially, I wasn't able to continue living in one of the highest cost of living areas in the country, so I needed to make another change. And I decided I was going to go to Sacramento and do real estate. But I needed some money. So I went and got a job with a construction company building bridges in Sacramento County. And that was actually really cool. I enjoyed that. I learned how to drive excavators, bulldozers, backhoes, bobcats. That was fun. Making $32 an hour. So did that, made some money, and then went to Sacramento and did real estate for 9 years. Now, in that time, there was a slow period, so I ended up taking a job with an electrical contractor, and after 6 weeks, he liked my work, so he offered me a position of lead man directly under the foreman on a brand new job site. So I've run crews of electricians. So I did real estate for 9 years. Well, the five final years that I was doing it, I was doing short sales. I negotiated on behalf of my clients with the banks. And if you don't know what short sales are, it's where you owe more on your house than what you can sell it for. So you need somebody like me, a middleman, to negotiate with the banks to forgive them the difference in debt when we sell the house. And a lot of times that ended up to be tens of thousands of dollars. But the problem is it's very, well, I got burnt out. So I needed another break. So I chose a time where I was going to cash out of real estate, and I left with a nice chunk of money and decided to move up to Eastern Oregon where my parents and my younger brother were and just get a job at a hardware store. So I got a job at a hardware store, and I worked there for the next 2 years. Well, after 6 weeks of working there, the manager liked what I did, so they offered me the position of department head for electrical and plumbing. So I did that for the next 2 years. Now this is where I want to pause. My underlying theme was risk-taking, fear, and courage in the context of you can do anything you want to do. And I absolutely believe that. Well, as you can see, I've had a lot of highlights in my life, but really where that risk-taking and that fear and that courage has come in is in everything in between that's allowed me to do those things. So I'm almost finished here. What I want to do is I want to tell you how I went from working at a hardware store to what I'm doing right now. So my younger brother went and got a job at a software development company in Ashland, Oregon called Plexus Healthcare Systems. And he's a software analyst. Now, he was telling me about this company, how cool it was. It was like a little mini Google. And the more he told me about it, the more I wanted to work there. But I'm not a programmer. I've never programmed before. And quite frankly, I don't want to. And I still don't want to. But I told him, if anything comes up, let me know. I want to get my foot in the door because I believe that if I got my foot in the door, I could find something that fit me. And so at about the 2-year point working at Ace Hardware, he gave me a call and they were hiring testers to test the software. Now, software tester, that company is pretty much the bottom level. You don't really need any type of experience. You just go in and follow step-by-step instructions as a start to test the software. So the manager called, I told him absolutely. The manager called me, hired me, but this was the offer. And this is where the risk comes in that I want you guys to consider and see for yourselves. Is the offer was $10 an hour and a 6-month contract. And I had to be to work there in 10 days, which meant moving from Hermiston, Oregon to Medford, which meant I had to find a place to rent, pack my stuff, move down. And still, I didn't even know if I would have a job after all that in 6 months, making $10 an hour. So I started out as a tester, and I looked around in the company once I got my foot in the door to see what other people were doing. And I found one thing that I liked. And there was a guy that had a really, really small operation building virtual computers. And what we did was he built the virtual computers and then installed our software on it for testing. Now, he didn't really want to do that. His aspirations were to go to IT. But I saw that as an opportunity. So eventually I worked my way into installing the software, And then I worked my way into actually building the virtual computers. And then at that point, he ended up going to IT, so I took over this system. Now I took that from a little seedling, a little tiny seedling, and have built a complete virtual environment, infrastructure, and system at a software developing company, which I'd never done before, that many people rely on, that has changed how the quality assurance department actually functions. And all of that was from taking that risk, $10 an hour, 6-month contract, and going there and moving there in 10 days. So keep that in mind when it comes to making decisions and your risk taking. So, risk taking. The fear, we're all going to have it. We're all going to experience it. Have the courage to make the decision, and when you make the decision, do it. Now, this is the key. Do it well. When you do it well. And if you follow that, you can do anything you want to. Eagle Ridge High School class of 2017, congratulations.
We are now ready for the distribution of diplomas.